The story begins pathetic as Raymond and is scorned as an illegitimate child. He awakens to his healing powers that can heal the sick. He studies to become a healer to be acknowledged. But he is a pathetic healer. Even after 5 years, he can only do chores and receive scornful comments. But one day, he awakens as an SSS-Rank surgeon. He gains knowledge of a doctor and medical procedures. He wakes up and remembers the surgery. He realizes it can save patients that can't be saved with heal. A window panel appears and congratulates him as a player. It also shows him his status and skills and guides him to level up. He is confused, but he knows this is a miracle. Because he is an F-rank healer, he is treated as trash. Just then, Lance calls him and fires him out of the clinic. He asks for another chance. They only keep Raymond because of his parents. He remembers that he can treat patients through surgery. He asks to prove himself by treating a patient using his knowledge of medicine. Lance gives him a patient to treat, and Raymond leaves. On his way, he worries that he might fail and get punished. He arrives at the patient's house and is invited. Inside, he checks the clinic's report, and the husband has a severe infection on his buttocks that needs a high-ranked healer, which they can't afford. He asks where the patient is, and the system gives him skill points for volunteering. He is tasked with treating his first patient. He approaches the patient, and a disgusting smell covers the air. He gets nervous, but his passive skill, Steel Heart, helps him calm down. He checks on the patient, and he asks for his wife and daughter's help. He asks for a sharp knife so he can do the surgery. They worry, because they don't know what surgery is. He starts by popping the infection, but the wife stops him. He claims that he is treating her husband, but she asks him to use heal. He refutes her and promises to make her husband better. She prays, and Raymond restarts. He calms himself by replaying the surgery knowledge in his head. He removes the pus and the dead tissues. Afterward, he applies medicinal herbs around the wound. He announces that the surgery is done, and after a few hours, the husband wakes up and his fever is gone. They thank Raymond, and he feels happy for treating someone. Later, Lance was surprised that Raymond had cured the patient and began to doubt him. Heal is used for boosting vitality, but it is ineffective against other illnesses that need to remove infections like pus. He just realized how this country's treatment method causes a lot of problems. Lance goes out to check on the patient to see if Raymond treated him. Raymond levels up and realizes that his title changes with every rank. He distributed his stat points, and he is happy to know that he can now climb higher, becoming the best healer. Just then, Lance returns and confirms that the patient is now better. Raymond remains in the clinic but is still treated as garbage. He tries to look around to do something and sees Hansen. He grabs Hansen's broom and offers to clean instead. He offers to treat patients, but Hansen worries that the others will get mad at him if he lets Raymond treat patients. He didn't mind and asked Raymond's assistance. Later, Raymond starts bandaging patients and gains experience. It's been 3 days, and he keeps leveling up. He invests his points in his sense stat to be a better surgeon. He now plans to live a luxurious life in the future that is far better than his unfortunate past of being the illegitimate son of a noble family. He gets complimented as a kind healer. Unlike the others, he claims that he knows the upsetting feeling of being treated coldly. He suddenly gained skill points for being a kind healer. The treatments ended today, and he started to clean the place. After an hour, he gained points and experience in cleaning the medical station. He's given a choice to buy a unique skill. Suddenly, a patient who is throwing up blood comes, and everyone uses heal. However, heal will also revitalize the blood, causing the patient to vomit more blood. Raymond thinks that the medical technique will work. Lance comes, and blood splatters on him. He orders them to give up on the patient. He confronts Lance, but Raymond just gets mocked. A sudden visitor appears and sees the patient crying for help. He asks Lance for permission to treat the patient. Lance calls him crazy and plans to make Raymond responsible if something goes wrong. Hansen appears and offers help. Raymond explains that he is going to use a different method. Hansen is worried about seeing a boiled knife. Raymond put the patient to sleep with anesthesia. He also gets some threads ready. He tells Hansen that he'll do surgery. He slices the patient's abdomen, and Hansen panics. He opens the wound and stays calm with his passive skill. Hansen panics, but he notices how serious and resolute Raymond is. Raymond asks Hansen to hold an organ while he removes the perforated part. He trembles, but he buys the nimble hands skill, and he operates better. He also manages to stitch back the cuts and finish the surgery. He levels up and gets weak in his knees. He is relieved that he did it. Later, Lance couldn't believe Raymond treated a patient who needed a high-ranked healer. He runs to confirm it and sees the patient happily chatting with Raymond. Lance yells at Raymond with doubt. Raymond claims he did treat the patient, but he didn't use heal. He explains that he used medical techniques, including an ancient healing technique he discovered in ruins, but Lance is skeptical. The patient gets up and shows evidence that he was treated. He then criticizes Lance for leaving him to die. Furious, he throws his urine bowl at Lance and tells him to get lost. The patient apologizes, and Raymond thanks him for defending him. After that, people around him questioned Raymond's medical techniques, but Hansen's attitude toward him hasn't changed. Lance approaches him and dispatches him to the Imperial Palace as a healer during the king's birthday. Raymond realizes that Lance just wants him to screw things up because the palace is hell for him. It turns out he is the king's illegitimate son. Lance laughs at him, trembling. Raymond has the urge to punch him, but he suddenly receives a quest with a high reward. He worries, but he accepted the assignment with the condition that he could take the official healer qualification exam after the event. The Lance agrees, and Raymond gets fired up. The day of the event comes, and Raymond worries. He resolves himself, and with the help of his steel heart, he moves forward. He examines the list of basic mage skills available for purchase, but instead chooses a skill to deal with rowdy people. People praise the king's achievements as a warrior and politician, and they use Raymond as his only mistake. Just then, they notice Raymond as a dispatched healer. With his steel heart, he is unaffected, but then he notices Sophia, who always looks at him like a bug. Just then, he is also approached by Sato, the fourth prince. Raymond trembles after hearing his voice, and recalls how he was treated by him in the past. Sato then calls him trash, and Raymond sweats. With his steel heart, he calms himself and greets Sato. Sato gets flustered, and Raymond asks if Sato wants to be treated, seeing that he approached a healer. Raymond then tells him to go enjoy the banquet because he is feeling fine. Raymond sees a patient in the sick bay and escapes from Sato. Sato is aware that Raymond is kicking him out. Then, he starts acting strange and tries to test Raymond. After checking him, Raymond states that he has alcohol poisoning. He advises Sato to refrain from daily alcohol consumption. Raymond asks him to take care of his body, and Sato doesn't have a comeback. Raymond leaves him, and he is thankful he bought the skill to deal with rowdy people. Sophia approaches him next and comments that Raymond changed. She came to rest because she feels unwell, but she'll just leave because Raymond is not even a proper healer yet. She stands in front of the crowd and starts her speech. Raymond notices her ragged breathing. Suddenly, Sophia's chest tightens, and she falls unconscious. Raymond realizes Sophia is the patient in his quest. The healers attempted to use a ranked heal, but nothing happened. Raymond panics and tries to ignore the scene, but then turns back to help so he can hear her apologize to him. He then announces that he will treat Sophia. Everyone who doubts his rank stops him, but he forces his way through. He discovers that it is a cardiac arrest. He uses CPR because he knows heal will not work. People criticize him for touching the princess, but he exclaims that he is saving her. They try to stop him, but the king arrives and asks if Sophia can be saved with heal. The healers can't say anything, and the king permits Raymond to continue. The pulse is not coming back, and he panics. Just then, he realizes that a defibrillator can help, but there's no such thing in this world. He suddenly remembers the mage skills that he can buy, and he purchases lightning magic. He uses lightning magic on Sophia, and the guard pushes him away. He is suspected of assaulting the imperial family. He claims that he is not and explains that he just saved Sophia. The king orders to check Sophia, and the highly ranked healer confirms that her heart is beating again. The king asks Raymond what he just did. Raymond explains that because heal didn't work, he used a different method. The king just stares at him and announces that the banquet is over. He also informs Raymond to stand by until he calls for him. He then leaves. Raymond recalls the time when the king visited him and his dead mother. He brings the young Raymond to the palace and asks healers to make sure he gets healed. That was the last time he heard the king's voice. The system announces his quest completion, and he gains a lot of level ups and skill points. He is summoned the next day, and he explains what medical technique is and how he got it. The king recognizes it and asks Raymond what reward he wants. He acts to be a passionate healer and claims he doesn't need treasures. But deep inside, he truly wants money. Instead, he requests that medical techniques be recognized as an official treatment method. The king accepts his request, and Raymond asks for one more request. Raymond asks for the Medal of the Bringer, a medal of honor without rewards. People start seeing him in a different light. Raymond actually had dark thoughts of becoming noble by using it. He claims that the medal is more than enough. The king then accepts his second request. The healers leave while the king watches over Raymond. His aide commented on how Raymond changed. He appeases the king's worry by telling him that Raymond can now provide for himself with his medical techniques. The king just turns around. Back in the clinic, the other healers now treat Raymond as a noble, even Lance, who tries to push him around. He then starts actively looking out for more patients and gains a lot of experience.
Clearin tries to introduce himself, but he keeps coughing up blood. Raymond interferes, and Lance, who thinks Raymond just got lucky with treating the princess, asks him to treat Clearin. Raymond worries, and Lance tries to embarrass him. Raymond claims that Lance is the chief and that he can heal the patient, but Lance prioritizes earning money over charity. Raymond gets mad and offers to treat the patient. Lance and the others leave him. Hansen arrives and offers help. Later, Raymond starts the surgery while Hansen worries about the blood sputtering out. Raymond panics with the blood blocking his vision. Hansen notices Raymond's trembling hands and calls him out. He then gets back to his senses and realizes how to treat the patient. He just needs to cauterize the veins with something. He realized something and went to buy flame magic. He gently uses the fire, and Hansen is surprised. The fire helped decrease the bleeding. Raymond stitches up the cuts, and they can stop the bleeding. But Hansen is now suspicious of how Raymond uses magic. Hansen doubts his methods, but he can see that they are effective. They were able to save the patient, and Raymond thanked Hansen. After some time, Clearin wakes up thinking he is in another clinic, and Raymond confirms that he treated him. Clearin's father arrives, and he is Count August, the great noble of the South. August claims to reward whoever saved Clearin, and Hansen introduces Raymond as his savior. Hansen also follows up on the fact that the chief healer tried to send away Clearin, thinking that he was a beggar due to his appearance. Count August gets mad. Lance got informed that Count August was looking for him, and he happily greeted them. Count August glares at him. Lance became confused but then realized that the man he mistook for a beggar was Count August's son. He tries to persuade them, but Clearin becomes agitated. He recalls everything Lance said. Count August gets furious, and Lance falls to his knees, asking for apologies. The Count calls him disgusting and orders his aide to take Lance away. Count August banishes Lance as a doctor from the whole empire. Lance is taken away, and Hansen and Raymond smile. August thanks Raymond and asks if he wants a reward. Raymond smiles at the thought of receiving a reward. The Count then offers to be a friend of Raymond, meaning their family will support him by any means. But even though they are already friends, Raymond still asks for the medical fees. The father and son got up and left. They discuss the royal succession and now think Raymond might get caught in it. Count August just wants him to blossom as a doctor. Meanwhile, the second prince, Kyan, got informed that Raymond saved Clearin. He then plans to observe Raymond from now on. Days later, Lance was kicked out because of the previous events. Some support Raymond's methods, but others still disagree with cutting the flesh open. They think the king only approved it because Raymond is his son. Meanwhile, Raymond is going to take the advancement exam, but he is worried about what will happen if he fails. Just then, Hansen inquires about Raymond's plans if he fails. He then thought of treating more patients. Hansen wishes him good luck. He is called inside, and he shows his healing powers. Everyone laughs at him, but they are biased. He activates his eloquence skill and uses the king's name. He announces that Odin de Houston has accepted the medical technique. One examiner claims that the healing tower doesn't recognize other methods aside from heal. He wants to prove first that he can treat a patient. He is given a document about the patient. In a flashback, the examiners decided to assign a patient to Raymond who couldn't be healed by a B-ranked healer. They want Raymond to fail. Back to the present, Raymond is happy to see that the patient has bed sores. The head examiner wonders why Raymond is happy when bed sores are not something that constantly rots the flesh and can't be fully cured by heal. Raymond then leaves, smiling. Later, Raymond visits the patient's house. The son explains the situation, and he takes a look at the patient. The son is impressed that Raymond is not bothered by the smell, unlike the other healers. He checks the wounds and determines that he can treat them. He also found out that the healers just lazily did their jobs. He then tells the son that he will perform surgery. He then proceeds to operate while the son worries. He finished the surgery and asked the son to change positions from time to time. It still needs more treatment, so Raymond will stay in the residence until the patient heals. Every day, Raymond continues to treat the patient until he recovers. The father and son give their utmost thanks to Raymond. Meanwhile, the head examiner gets mad after discovering that Raymond was successful in treating the patient. He doesn't have any reasons to disqualify Raymond. The next issue is what rank to assign to him. They are divided on what rank to give, and the head examiner suggested letting the headquarters decide. Soon after, a response from headquarters arrives, assigning Raymond the U rank or undetermined. The news spread, but people gossiped about it being unvalued. Raymond is happy to pass. He meets Hansen, who also passed for C rank, and invites them to celebrate. Later, the two drunkards finish their food and drinks. Hansen asks Raymond for the location of the ruins. A drunk Raymond confesses that the ruin doesn't exist, and that he only got the power one day, like a miracle. Hansen misunderstands Raymond, thinking that he just doesn't want to share his secret. The next day, Hansen overhears that Raymond got invited by a famous clinic, but he declined it. Hansen barges into Raymond's room. Raymond tells him that he is going to set up his clinic. He can't level up his skills if he stays in a place with some competition. He plans to set up his clinic in the Bay Area. Hansen worries, but Raymond claims that he just wants to treat more patients. Limerton, the third prince, also hears about Raymond setting up a clinic. He planned to give Raymond a position in the famous clinic as thanks for treating Clearin. Limerton will not refer to Raymond again because he declined the opportunity. The Bay region, located in the northwest, is the poorest area. It is a lawless area built by refugees from the war. They are essentially malicious empire abscesses. The king wants to stabilize the area, but all of his sons have failed. Limerton is now suspicious of Raymond. People heard about Raymond's venture to the Bay area. He promises to succeed and come back to treat them. He receives a letter from Sophia calling him a fool. Hansen tries to convince Raymond not to go there, but Raymond is resolute because he lived there before. It is his home, where he and his mother lived. He tells Hansen not to worry, and Hansen suddenly decides to go with him. Hansen also asks to learn Raymond's medical techniques. Suddenly, a system appears, asking to make Hansen his apprentice. The system explains that the experience earned by the apprentice will be shared with Raymond. Because of the enticing system, Raymond accepts Hansen's request. The two of them pump up and prepare to leave. Hansen wears armor and brings out a weapon because the Bay Area is infamously dangerous. He gives Raymond a metal stick, and the system gives him self-defense skills. He is impressed that he has a chance to wield weapons and magic at the same time. They arrive in the Bay Area, and people are suspicious of them. They open their clinic, but no one is coming. Days passed, and no patients came. Just then, a rock crashes into the window. They go outside and discover vandalism in their building. Hansen suggests leaving the place, but Raymond cries over the money he's spent so far. Just then, the system gives him a quest to change the minds of the slum people. He tells Hansen to leave if he wants, but Raymond wants to stay behind. Hansen misunderstood this and decided to stay with Raymond. Raymond suddenly had an idea of what to do next. The next day, they went to the plaza. Raymond approaches some people he knows, and it's a good thing they also remember him. They ask him why he came back, and thinking that he has become a noble, they ask Raymond to leave. Raymond claims that he came back to treat patients with his steel heart. He then confesses that he is indeed noble, but he claims that this place doesn't have healers. That's why his mother died without even getting any treatment. He just hoped it wouldn't happen to anyone else. Raymond then offers to treat the patients on Crescent Street, the darkest area of the slums teeming with those who work in the entertainment district and are cursed. He declares that he will treat God's curse. Hansen worries that they might get infected, and Raymond tells him that he can go alone. Despite his reservations, Hansen agreed to accompany him because he wanted to learn Raymond's medical techniques. They approach a woman in a veil, and Raymond claims they can treat her. The woman laughs and shows a face full of red and black spots. Raymond immediately approaches her and checks her skin. Based on his normal medical knowledge, it is just a type of skin disease. He also asks them to check the others in the deepest corners of their bodies. The women didn't mind because they are used to showing their naked bodies. They warn him about spreading it, but Raymond explains that it is just a normal illness called syphilis, and it can be cured. He then sees some bread with mold and asks if he can use it to make a magic pill. Hansen takes down notes. Creating the magic pill or penicillin is costly because of the expensive herbs. Raymond doesn't have a choice but to use the molds on bread. He concocted with precision, and he was able to create an antibiotic. He gains a lot of points and bonuses and learns the alchemy skill. He starts applying the antibiotic to the women. A while later, the spots are gone, and they thank Raymond while worrying about the treatment fees. He tells them not to make any claims because seeing them get better is his reward. After that, Raymond's reputation gets better. Raymond levels up and gains points again. The next day, a lot of patients were now consulting him. He was able to treat the patients that came and went. Hansen asked him how he got the idea for the medicine for syphilis. Raymond admits that this is the result of a sudden flash of insight. Just then, a woman asking to heal her mother interrupts them. Hansen recalls the times he has seen Raymond studying hard. He believes Raymond has the ability because he is sincere in his treatment of patients. That night, they check their accounts and they suffered losses. They cheer up, thinking that they'll get richer if they become more famous. Just then, a group of illegal healers conducted a meeting because they lost their income because of Raymond's free treatment. They plan to recruit Raymond. The next morning, they confront Raymond and make him choose between increasing the treatment fee and leaving the place. Raymond claims that the poor won't be able to pay the high amount. The ringleader claims that they should pay because their powers are given by the gods. Raymond remembers his mother and gets mad at them. He uses his noble status to drive them away. He tells Hansen not to worry and continues to treat the patients in line. That night, the illegal healers held a meeting again, and this time Lance was present because he holds grudges against Raymond. He suggests spreading rumors that Raymond's methods are sham, and Lance suggests bribing the patients he has treated so far. A few hours later, they fail because the people don't trust them anymore. They plan next to hire the Blue Moon Guild, a vigilante group that protects the poor from evil people. The guild master, Kansier, has a great sense of justice but is ignorant, so Lance manipulated him to believe that Raymond was using the slum people for experimentation. The next day, Kansier visits Raymond's clinic and asks them to leave the slums. A patient asks if Raymond did something wrong, and Cancer exclaims that Raymond is conducting human experiments. Raymond had a quest to treat Cancer. Raymond claims, with a steel heart, that the king recognized his methods and that he is qualified as a healer. He tells Cancer that the other healers are just slandering him because he offers cheaper fees. Cancer then recalls the swindler, Lance. He becomes enraged. Raymond stops him from going and thinking that Cancer is rich, and he offers him consultation and treatment. They sit down, and Cancer is not feeling well. He experiences pain in his anus, and blood also comes together with his bowels. The healers relieve the pain, but only for a while. Raymond realizes that it is hemorrhoids, and he claims that he can treat him. Cancer is concerned about the surgery, but he recalls Lance, not treating the underlying cause to extract more money from him. Cancer reluctantly accepts the treatment, and later, Raymond conducts the operation with Hansen. He continues cutting out the hemorrhoids until he finishes everything. He levels up and gains points. He tells Cancer that it is over, and he advises him to do a sitz bath for the next few days. Cancer laughs and thanks him. Raymond wishes for the payment, and Cancer gives him a bag of money, and he leaves. That night, Cancer beats up Lance and the other illegal healers. He was able to drive them out of the Bay Area. After that, Raymond's clinic kept booming, and of course, he kept leveling up. Cancer bursts in and informs him that a deadly and infectious disease is on its way, and advises him to flee. The Grim Reaper of Death is the world's name for smallpox. Hansen also suggests running away. A woman that Raymond treated claims he got rid of God's curse. She claims that it is a weird coincidence for smallpox to appear in the capital. Raymond asked for the symptoms, and a villager explains them. Raymond thinks it might be a different disease, but it could also be smallpox. Suddenly, a quest appears, and Raymond notices something. It is not smallpox. He asks Hansen to prepare thick clothes and masks, along with gloves and robes to cover the body. He intends to meet with the patients and examine them to prevent the spread of the disease. The infected will be burned. Just then, Raymond appears, and he tells the people that it might be smallpox. The people are worried about him getting infected, so he buys a shield skill. He activates it and goes inside the house. He checks on the symptoms and assures them that it is not smallpox, but chickenpox. He explains further that they will just go away in time. He also explains it outside. Shortly after, the family got better and thanked Raymond for saving their lives. He gains levels and points afterward. They all thank Raymond for making the Bay Area stable. Meanwhile, an advisor suggests getting rid of the Bay region to the king. Raymond and Hansen eat meat for the first time in a while. Hansen asks if Raymond used a shield. Hansen is impressed, but Raymond claims he can only use it for a limited time because he doesn't have mana. He thinks of doing mana training like the knights. Just then, an emergency patient comes, and the two immediately attend to him. Meanwhile, the king and his advisor visit the Bay region in secret. They overhear people talking about how someone died in Raymond's clinic. Raymond did try to treat the person, but he died in the end. The king also hears the rumor about Raymond doing human experimentation. Suddenly, a woman interrupts them to defend Raymond, claiming that he did his best, cried when the patient died, and sincerely apologized to the family when he failed. More people open up about how Raymond saved their lives, and they all hail Raymond as the Prince of the Slums. Raymond gets the title, and he gains buffs and points. The king and his advisor continue walking. The king coughs too much, and the advisor worries. They then discover that a kidnapping is taking place. The king tries to save the girl, but she attacks him. The king thinks she is an assassin. He fights back, and the girl uses smokescreen magic. The king lost sight of her, and the smokescreen affected his breathing. Just then, the girl attacks him from behind, but she gets pierced through with magic. The advisor comes and checks on the king. He notices that the king has been poisoned. The king suggests being healed by the healer in the palace, but there is no time. He can feel his symptoms and might not cut his arm off. The advisor suggests visiting Raymond's clinic nearby. He insists that Raymond has at least the ability to treat him. Later, two suspicious-looking men arrive at Raymond's clinic. He feels scared, but he still leads them inside. Raymond then checks on the king's arm. He asks for symptoms, and the king describes them. Raymond kind of recognizes his voice. Raymond finds out the type of poison and claims that he can treat it. The advisor was surprised and asked Raymond how he knew about it. Raymond claims that he got an S in botany. He received antidotes, but the method of treatment will be different. Instead of drinking it, he will directly inject it into the blood vessel using a needle. The advisor disagrees and calls the method bizarre. The king interrupts and asks about the patient who recently died. Raymond flinches. He also asks if the rumors about human experimentation are true. Steelheart activates, and the system recognizes the king as a rowdy person. Raymond explains the method further. He then swears by his family name, which he inherited from his mother. The king remembers Raymond's mother, and he agrees to the method. Raymond tells him not to be surprised, and he injects him with the antidote. The advisor worries, but there is nothing strange. Just then, the king felt something and covered his face. Raymond worries that there was a side